What's up, everybody? Welcome to Make Things Tiny. My name is Mick. I know for a lot of you who are looking to go tiny, one of the main draws is being able to save money. You want to downsize, but you also want to make sure that your overhead monthly costs are much lower than they currently are, so that you have more money to do things that you enjoy, like travel, or so you can just have more money in your bank account. So today we're going to hear from Farrah. Farrah currently lives in a tiny house in Texas. They're going to talk a little bit about how going tiny is helping them reach their financial goals. Before we get into Farrah's tiny house journey, I want to take a moment and thank the sponsor for today's video, Tiny Homes Village. Tiny Homes Village is a tiny house community located in Rock Island, Tennessee. They're close to everything that you need, like shopping, hospitals, and dining. They're in a peaceful community, and they've got a new rent-to-own program to help you save money on those upfront tiny house costs. What's really awesome is that they've got a special promotion going on just through the rest of September, so about 2 weeks left on this from the time that this video is recorded. Exclusive to Make Things Tiny viewers and subscribers, you'll get 50% off the community entry fee if you sign up by the end of September. So if you've been dreaming about tiny house living with a real sense of community, this is your chance. Make sure you go to makethingstiny.com/tinyhomesvillage or reach out to them directly. Just make sure you mention Make Things Tiny so that you get the 50% off. All right, let's jump into it and let's learn about Farrah's tiny house journey. All right, I am here today with Farrah. Farrah, thank you so much for being on the channel. Farrah is a fellow YouTuber, the creator of Finding Freedom with Farrah here on YouTube, and also a tiny house dweller. So I'm excited for people to learn about you, your experiences going tiny. If you don't mind just talking a little bit about what first inspired you to downsize and then what made you decide to choose a park model tiny home.
Well, for years I had been researching tiny house living. I'm like really into like van life, living abroad, alternate housing, you know. Um, and I always said when my kids moved out of the house that I would, downsize to a tiny house. And my son just happened to move out like well ahead of when my youngest son happened to move out well ahead of when I expected him to. And when he moved out, I had the choice of renewing a lease. We lived in a 3-story single family home that I would have, now be living in by myself. Or I could go get an apartment, or I can go, I was like, I might as well go ahead and explore tiny house living. In Texas, where I live at, there are several manufacturers, several dealers so I just started going around looking in person. And I have been watching Mr. Tiny on, if anybody is in the tiny house community, they always see Mr. Tiny. And I have been watching him for years, and then I went over to the dealership where he works at, and kind of just looked at the houses there, and I just like, yeah, this is for me. And I liked the park model specifically because I liked it, that it was wider. Like I didn't want like the narrow house. It does have its limitations because I can't just pick it up and attach it to a truck and drive it off. But I like that it was wider. The particular people who built my house, Platinum Cottages, they use real wood and sheetrock, and not some of the less expensive materials. My house is a quality built house. So I went with them specifically, and then they could get my house in the time frame that I wanted. My lease was up in like 4 months. I had my house ahead of schedule. So, and it's not always that way. It just happened to work out that way for me. So, but I chose a park model because I wanted a wider house. I specifically wanted a king size bedroom. I was not compromising on my king size bed. And at the time, it was just I was finding more places would accept. And while I live right outside of Dallas, but I was finding more places in the Dallas area were kind of accepting of park models.
No, that makes sense. I think like a couple things that you're mentioning are, I think, really important for people to know, and also just makes a lot of sense to me with the things that I know about tiny houses. Like Texas, for one, is like if you're going to go tiny and you're living in Texas, you're not going to have a shortage of providers, for builders, for communities. You've got a lot of options, like really like a pick of the litter in some ways compared to other states. So that's a huge advantage. I think it's really great that you were able to go and look at a builder in person, because that's definitely something that I encourage people to do if you can, like go physically walk around, see what the houses look like, see what they feel like, know your must haves with the king size bed and all that
Yeah.
too. Like, I think that makes complete sense for park models, because you can get a park model that's like, 14, 15, even 16 feet wide, which is much
Mhm.
wider than a traditional 8.5 or 8 foot wide tiny house. So I think that's really great. You were able to get in the time frame you wanted to. So like for the most part, you've had like a really great experience, which I'm
Yeah.
really happy to hear. You did mention like downsizing from like a 3-story home. What was that transition like? I think that's a part of it that a lot of people don't really talk too much about. Like, how was it transitioning from a traditional home to the tiny house lifestyle?
Um, the actual downsizing, the getting rid of stuff, it ironically it was harder to give stuff away than it was to sell it. Like my big items I sold, I was able to sell my couch and my dining room table and all the big things. People, I just put it on Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace, and they kind of snatched it up. But when it came down to like, I had like days, I was like, I still have all these little tiny things, and I was just like, I was like posting it on Facebook. If you want it, come get it. To like my friends, and then a friend suggested, he was like, put it on in the Facebook groups and tell them, just drag it out to your driveway, put it on there, tell them first come first serve. I did that. My driveway was cleared out in 30 minutes. Like I was like, I should have did this from the beginning, because I had to pay to take away some stuff because it was just too heavy for me to carry it. And then I was calling charities, asking them to come pick up stuff, and they was like, no, we can't come get it. And then I would put it in my car thinking that I could drive it over to Goodwill or whatever. They was like, no, we're not taking things right now. So I'm like, how am I going to get rid of this stuff? So that's also something to think about. Don't think that you could automatically just give it away, because it's not, it wasn't that easy. Um, for me to actually get rid of stuff, it wasn't hard at all, because I was kind of like, it was like it was like a weight was lifted. It's like I have all of these things that I never like. I'm carrying them from house to house to house to house, because I'm originally from Florida, and I moved from Florida to Texas for my job, and I'm had a pod, and I brought all this stuff, and most of it sat in my garage, and I'm like, I'm just moving this stuff from house to house. I never use it, and it was very liberating getting rid of all of this stuff that I don't have. I had my closet in the house that I live in prior is the same size as my bedroom. So the closet I have now is like teeny, teeny, tiny. So I don't have room to store excess stuff. And that's one thing about it now. Like when I'm buying some, the first thing I think is, can this fit in my house? Because I'm not going to get a storage. If it can't fit under my house, if it can't fit in my loft, and my son's up there now because he moved in. So it's like, if I can't fit it in my house, I don't buy it. Like yeah, I started, like when I first got my house, I started taking a tape measure. Like, can this fit in this space? It is really weird, but it is liberating at the same time, because it you don't have, like when I went on vacation, I would like buy all of these souvenirs and trinkets and things, and now it's like I don't have any place to put that, so I just stopped buying it. So it helps you save money. It helps you look at what is, like, I only keep the little sentimental things. It helps you realize what's important to you.
I think that's a really good point too. Like, if you can't fit it in your house, you literally can't have it, which is so different than, if you're living in a 2,000 or 3,000 square foot home,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, like you'll just buy things because they can go places, and then they kind of
Mm-hmm.
disappear in the house when it's that large. Like, you find it later when you're going to move, like, how long has this thing been here?
Yeah.
I definitely don't need it, because I
Yeah.
didn't even know I had it. So that's a really good point, which I think probably for a lot of people watching would be like a relief, because you might think that it could be difficult, but like you said, like, people bought things pretty quickly, and you don't even think about some of those things now that you're
Mm-hmm.
you're in your home, which is great. I know that you talk a lot about, like financial freedom on your YouTube channel, and, the financial side of tiny house living is why a lot of people go tiny. They want to save money. They want to, reach different financial goals. How has going tiny impacted you in terms of, maybe your financial journey and some of the goals that you've had when you set out to do this, or goals you've developed over time?
Going tiny actually helped me save like tens of thousands of dollars. Um, my expenses were like probably one third of what I had when I lived in the bigger house. Um, my light bill is like 50 on a bad month. It's like 118, which is still is not a big deal. That's like when I'm burning
Mhm.
all the air conditioners in the house. But most months it's about $50. And I was laid off from my job in April 2024, so we're well over a year. And honestly, if I had not had my tiny house, I would be homeless right now. There's a lot of advantages. I don't own mine outright. I do have a mortgage, but there's a lot of advantages of having a mortgage that you don't have when you're renting. Because when you don't pay that rent, they just go come put you out. But with a
Mhm.
mortgage, you
Mhm.
can they'll work with you because they don't want to buy the house back basically. So or lose the
Right.
money, from you not paying for the house. So, um, my mortgage is um, including the property taxes and my house insurance is less than $1,000 a month. It's like 967. So, and I do have to pay property taxes. You usually do not have to pay property taxes, but the specific
Mhm.
county that I live in Texas, they require you pay it. But there's a huge lawsuit against that, so we may end up getting it all back. I hope so. But for now, I'm still having to pay taxes. But on park models, you usually do not have to pay taxes because it's considered an RV. It's considered a vehicle, and you have a VIN number. But it has helped me like so much because like I said, I wouldn't have been able to save as much money as I had. So when I got laid off, I wouldn't have had all this money in the bank. And then
Mhm.
even now, making less money than I was making, I'm still able to make my mortgage. Thank God, fingers crossed. Even though I'm still technically unemployed, but I do have other sources of income. When you do side hustles and you're an entrepreneur, they come in kind of
Right.
sporadically until you can get that consistent coming in. But um, it's also helped me to just be more free.
So one thing I wanted to say is that, first of all, I think it's really encouraging that you're actually able to go tiny in a way that saves you money. I think that's the main thing that a lot of people are concerned about. Like, if I do this, will I actually save money? Will my mortgage be too high? So I think it's great that it's provided you with the safety net, especially with, losing your job more recently too, and being able to just sort of maintain your lifestyle in a way where you don't feel stressed out month to month is something that a lot of people are sort of struggling with right now. So I think it's great for them to see that, like, it is possible. You can still do it even in 2025, even with everything that's going on. You can still find a way to go tiny in a way that works for you, and makes you feel less stressed financially. Which brings me to my next question. I know overall you've had like a really positive experience, which I'm super happy to hear about. Have there been, any challenges? Like, what would you say is like one challenge you've experienced in going tiny in the past? I believe it's like year or two that you've been doing it.
It's almost 3 years. November will be 3 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, One thing that I've experienced that has been a challenge for me is that um, I live on the outskirts of the city, and that is one thing about tiny house living. A lot of times, the city officials will not let you move into the city. There are some instances where if you live in an RV park or you catch a rare land deal in the city, you can live in the city. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to be living on the outskirts of the city. And let me tell you, nobody wants to come visit you way in the country. So it's been, at first, it was like complete bliss. It was like, oh, I'm out here. It's beautiful. It's animals. I live in a tiny house community, and it's probably about 35, 45 minutes drive to Dallas, Dallas proper. So, um, but when traffic is horrible in the DFW, the whole DFW. So you have to plan this. There's no getting up and like, oh, let's go to the mall. It's no, let's go to the museum. No, you have to plan because it's going to take you an hour and a half. And I think that was the most challenging thing for me is that um, I immediately became isolated because for one, I was an unexpected empty nester. My children moved out, and then I moved out into the country. And I'm thinking, well, I hardly ever go out. When I do, I'll just drive. It is nobody. Telling you, nobody wants to come visit you, or at least me. Nobody wants to come visit me way out in the country. So that was the greatest challenge for me, and I constantly look for new places to move my house closer. I'm actually on the road now, and I'm actually looking in different states that might accept my house now. So it's kind of recording it for my channel as well. So it's kind of been an adventure and a journey. But I think that is the greatest challenge for me. Was I didn't realize it was going to be so isolating at first, and that I would have to put in much more effort to stay connected to my friends, because I didn't especially after my son moved out, I had zero family there. So I had to drive. Everybody was over an hour away. So that was the most challenging thing for me. And then there was no getting up and driving just 5 minutes or just walking to a corner store. There's no walking to a corner store. You gotta get in your car and drive to the store. And it's not like extremely far away, but you know how you get up and you can just drive 5 minutes to the store. I have to drive, it's like 15-20 minutes, which is not incredibly inconvenient, but it is inconvenient when you want it right there. So that's the most challenging thing for me. Outside of that, I love living in my house. I love the size. I love that it takes me way less time to clean. I wish there were more people of color out there, but I'm the only person of color. So
I think that's kind of speaking to the trade-offs too, and I think that's I appreciate that you're really honest and transparent about it, because I think it's important for people to know like what you're getting into. Like there are all the pros and like all the things that are really exciting about it, but yeah, where you end up putting your tiny house can have a significant impact on your commute, to your friends, to your family, or just what your day-to-day life looks like in terms of just more planning. You have to really be more mindful of like, okay, well, if it's going to take me 30 minutes to go to the store and I'm tired, do I really want to go to the store? Or like, how am I going to figure this out? But it's great that you can, even in this situation where you're like, okay, maybe this isn't ideal, you can still travel throughout the country and find another place to put your house. And you can't do that when you have a 2,000 square foot house. Wherever you buy that home is going to be where that house is going to be. If you don't like the environment, if you don't like the people, you don't like the grocery store, like it doesn't matter. You can't pick your standalone single family house up and put it somewhere else. Not yet, at least. You never know. Maybe in the future, maybe in like 100 years or something, you'll be able to move them. But for now, you can't. So that's a really cool point. I didn't really think about that in terms of the commute and the traffic being outside of a major city like Dallas. Which leads me to my last question. I think like a lot of people, when they're watching these videos on my channel and learning about your channel as well too, what sort of advice would you have for someone who's watching right now and they're thinking like, okay, like I'm on this financial freedom train, or like I want to be free, I want to be just like Farrah. What kind of advice would you give them in terms of things they need to consider before they make this life-changing decision that you've made?
I think you need to do proper research. You not only need to talk to the manufacturers, you need to talk to people who live in tiny houses and different types of tiny houses, because you can have a shed conversion, and some of those are not accepted everywhere. You can have a park model, you can have a tiny house on wheels, you can there's those are the three main ones, but there are pros and cons to all of those, and all of those are not accepted everywhere. Um, if you can, save the money and buy it in cash. A lot of them are, and if you can, if you're a DIYer, I am not a DIYer, so I get the people who are not, because I'm not going to build a house. But if you can save money, do it in all aspects, because the best feeling would be to just own it outright. Nothing wrong with having a mortgage. I have a mortgage. Um, but you have a lot more options and freedom if you can buy it outright. So I know Jewel Pearson, she bought hers. She's, very, she's a tiny house pioneer. She bought hers like 10, 15 years ago. She bought hers outright. And then she was saying, you always need to plan for double. You need to plan whatever you think that you're going to pay, double it. Because there's all these things that come up. And then there's price fluctuations, especially in this economy. When I bought my house, the prices had doubled. The lumber, the sheetrock, because my house is made, it's not made of like flimsy material. It's made of like, it's just a little house on a trailer. But you need to plan and research. Actually go and look at them, and if you can, if somebody will let you in their house, go and look at it too. Because once you leave that dealership, it's a whole different thing. When I they delivered my house, there were some things wrong with it, and the manufacturer actually sent some people out to fix it, even well after the date that they give you 30 days. They well after that date, they came and fixed some stuff for my house, and that's one thing I like about Platinum. They'll tell you they're not coming after 30 days, but like my windows were broke, and I didn't discover it until like it was probably about 4 or 5 months later, and they came and replaced my windows not once but twice. So I have nothing but good things to say about them. But make sure you do your research. Actually, go look, not just at the dealership, but if somebody will let you in their house, or if you have go talk to somebody. Don't just take the manufacturer's word for it. Have a neighbor who went through 3 different houses before they got a house that was secure and solid. Like they had to return a tiny house twice. So you need to research, and then they don't want to give them their money back, so they have to go through litigation. So research, 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 and save as much cash. And if you can pay for it in cash, please do.
That's good advice too. I think the cash one, it's probably like, it's really good advice. It's probably hard for people to hear, but I see where it would definitely help you to just be able to pay for it up front. I think it's good that, there are some financing options, but depending on where you're looking and the builder, like they could be limited. So I think the point you mentioned about, if you can stay and you can go and look at someone's house to look at it, because it can be different than, like you might get it. It looks really great, but if you're not actually able to like walk through it and like, see if the lights work and, turn the faucets on, do all those different things you would do in a regular traditional home, you might get it. And then it could be, a problem. So I think that that's a good point too, to do the research. It's a long process. I think that's something that, I've mentioned a lot, and, people that have come on the channel and said, like, some people, it could take you a very long time to get to a point from when you're looking to when you're actually in your house. But it's worth it if you ask the right questions and you go through that whole process, so you don't end up like the person that you're talking about, where you have to get like 2 or 3 homes before you get the right one.
And research not just the builders, but the different options, because sometimes a shed conversion is amazing, and then it's probably the lowest cost too. So
That's true. Yeah, you don't have to just go the route you're seeing everyone else go. You can, you know, learn about as many different options as possible, so you make the right decision for you. So yeah, no, I think that's really good advice, and I appreciate you just taking the time to chat with us. I know you're very busy, but I appreciate you just like walking through everything and being really open and honest about your experience. And links to everything that you're doing will be in the video description, so people can reach out to you and check out your YouTube channel and follow it and like learn more and just get to follow along with this journey with you. So again, I really appreciate you just taking the time to chat with me, Farrah, and I look forward to just seeing how the rest of your tiny house journey unfolds.
all right, thank you so much for having me.
All right, that was my conversation with Farrah. I appreciate Farrah taking the time to talk to us about why they decided to go tiny, why they chose a park model, what some of the benefits have been for them, and just their overall experience going tiny so far. So thank you again, Farrah, for taking time to chat with us. Make sure you reach out to Farrah to ask questions. Check out their YouTube channel as well too. There's links to everything that they're doing here in the video description. If you haven't seen my other videos with people who have gone tiny and they share their experience, you can check those out here as well too. And don't forget to think tiny. I'll see you guys in the next one.